Well, hey there, kiddos, and welcome to multi-step equations. We're going to skip right past one step and jump straight to the multi-step because single-step equations you should be good with. When we solve equations, we always work backwards through the order of operations. So instead of doing multiply and divide first, then add and subtract, we go backwards. So we do addition, subtraction, then multiplication and division in most cases. There will be some cases where we do multiply and divide first, and I'll show you what those are as we get to them. So this first problem, we have 1.5 equals 1.2y minus 5.7. Your goal is to get this y all by itself. So you have to look at what is together on the same side of the equal sign with that y and start with whatever is being added or subtracted and cancel it out. So this minus 5.7 is being subtracted. To cancel that, I have to add 5.7. And like with our addition property of equality rule, we learned if we add 5.7 to one side, we have to add 5.7 to the other side, so we're being fair. And then we'll just simplify this, so this becomes 7.2 equals 1.2y. And so now we are down to where all we have left is multiplication and division, or multiplication, because this means multiplied. To undo multiplying, we simply divide by that number. So if I divide both sides of this equation by 1.2, I get that 6 equals y. And if I plug that back into my original equation, like I do evaluating an expression and check it, I will get this side equals this side and it will match. So the next problem, 0.6g plus 11 equals 5. Look at the side that has the variable and find out what is being added or subtracted. In this case, it's the plus 11. So to cancel that out, I'm going to minus 11. And I will also minus 11 from the other side. So I have 0.6g equals negative 6. And to undo this multiplication, I will divide by 0.6 on both sides. And when I do that, I get that g equals negative 10, because a negative divided by a positive makes a negative. So there is that answer. Let's try a couple more. These look a little different because the first thing y'all are going to tell me is, oh no, those have fractions. These problems are not fractions, that's a division problem. If they all mean division, don't freak out. I promise they're not fractions, and even if they were, it would be okay. But this one right here, I have 15 equals a divided by 3 minus 2. This is the side that a is on, so I have to look over here first, and the thing that's being subtracted is the minus 2. So I'm going to add 2 to both sides. So you have 17 equals a divided by 3. Well, now this is division. So I have to now do the opposite of division, which happens to be multiplication. So if I multiply both sides by 3, these 3's will cancel. So all I have is an a. And then 3 times 17 makes 51. So there's my answer. Now number 8 is the exception to that go backwards through PEMDAS rule. Because what happened on number 8, what's different about number 8 than it's really not number 8 on your paper, but what's different about this problem and the problem before it is this one, the one we just did, has a variable divided by a number. The one we're getting ready to do has a quantity divided by a number, which means it has several things. It has an x minus 7 and the whole thing is divided by 4. It's not just a variable. So when you run across a problem like this and you have a quantity divided by something, the first thing you have to do is get rid of this denominator. You have to get rid of what you're dividing by. You have to clear that fraction so that you don't have to mess with it anymore. So in order to clear out this denominator and get rid of this fraction, this really means division, and the opposite of that is multiplication. So I'm going to multiply by 4 on both sides of my equation. That way I can cancel my denominator, because when I multiply this side by 4, these 4's cancel out, leaving me with x minus 7. You do not do 4 times x and 4 times 7. The 4's simply cancel out. That's the reason we multiplied by 4. And that equals negative 8, because negative 2 times 4 is negative 8. So now I have a one-step equation, easy to solve, so I'm going to add 7 on both sides, which will give me that x equals negative 1. Now the next question is important because the next question comes straight from an SAT kind of test. And the reason why we want to start seeing these kinds of questions is because you are going to have to take the SAT or its equivalent, the ACT, if you want to, go to college. And so they're important tests. They're going to show up and they ask questions a little different, so you should get used to seeing them. This one says if 3x plus 5 equals 17, then x plus 7 equals what? Well, we can't figure out what anything equals till we know what x is. So we're going to ignore this x plus 7 part, and we're going to solve this equation they gave us, this 3x plus 5 equals 17. To do that, I'm going to subtract 5 on both sides. And so when I do that, I still have 3x equals 12. And so to undo my multiplication, I divide both sides by 3, which is going to give me that x equals 4. But that's not my answer. The question did not say then x equals what? It says then x plus 7 equals. So now we're going to do like we're evaluating an expression like we did the other day. We know that x equals 4, so we're going to plug that in. Instead of x, we're going to make this 4 plus 7. Well, 4 plus 7 is 11. So that is the answer to that question. So you have to solve the equation first to get x, then plug it back into the other part. That looks like a complicated question, but it's really fairly easy. So now let's extend this to some word problems. Word problems have been giving us trouble, so it's something we should practice. So the next one says the area of a small triangle is 25 square inches. This is 4 square inches more than a fifth of the larger triangle's area. Find the area of the larger triangle. Well, they've given you a lot of information. You know the small one is 25. Then the next sentence starts with these two words. It says this is. Well, the this is referring to the 25 square inches. So it's saying 25 is. Well, the word is means equals. So it's saying 25 equals 4 square inches more than a fifth of the larger triangle. Well, we don't know what the larger triangle is. So we're going to call the larger triangle x. So this is really 4 inches more than a fifth of x. So it's 4 more than 1/5 x. And I'm going to rewrite this. So instead of using the fraction, the 1/5, I'm going to write it as x over 5. They mean the same thing, but the second one, the one I just wrote, is easier to solve an equation with than the top one. So now I have to get rid of what is being added or subtracted. But this problem works a little bit different because what is being added is this 4. It's 4 plus. But to determine whether or not I have to add or subtract to solve, I have to look at the sign in front of the number, not what's behind it. This 4 is positive. The opposite of a positive 4 would be a negative 4, so I will subtract 4 from each side. And so what I end up with is 21 equals x divided by 5. And then in order to find out what x equals, I have to undo division, which takes multiplication. So I'm going to multiply by 5 on both sides. And when I do that, I get that the area of the larger triangle is 105 square inches. Apologize for the cell phone reminder I just got if you heard that. There's a family picnic about to happen and I need to go down there. Alrighty, so the next one. Ashlyn's scores on her last 4 algebra tests were 82, 86, 91, and 96. What does Ashlyn need to make on her 5th test if she needs to make a 90 average? So we got to think about what we know about averages. Averages mean we got to add everything together and divide by how many there are to figure out what they are. So let's just talk about what we know. We know that she has an 82, an 86, a 91, and a 96. We know that she wants to have an average that is a 90, but that's with 5 tests. I only have 4 tests listed, so I have to include the 5th test. We're going to call that x. But I'm not done averaging because in order for this to be an average, I would have to divide by how many things there are, and in this case, there are 5. So we're going to do 2 things here. We're going to simplify a lot of things all at once. The first thing, this is like this problem over here where I had to multiply on both sides first to get rid of this fractiony looking thing. So the first thing I'm going to do is multiply both sides by 5. So I'm going to multiply this by 5 to cancel these out. And then I'm going to add this stuff up. So I added all these up and I ended up with 355. So this becomes 355 plus x. So I simplified 2 things at once because I've canceled out those 5's. And that equals 450 because 90 times 5 is 450. Now I have a simpler problem. I just need to find out what x is, and x happens to be her fifth test. So to do that, I have to get rid of this 355. Well, since that's a positive number, I will subtract it to cancel it out. And I will get that she needs to make a 95 on her fifth test if she wants to keep an A average. So if she wants to have an A average, an average of a 90, she needs to make a 95 on that next test. That's how you do those kinds of questions. So the next two problems, these are the kinds that have really been bothering us. The consecutive integer problems, complementary angle problems, triangle problems, anything that has involved us to set some things up. And so we're going to do something called let statements, which I think is a good thing to get you started when you're doing a word problem, is to first tell me what do your variables equal. And you are usually going to have more than one. Or you're going to have more than one let statement. So here's what we know. We know the sum of two consecutive integers is 47. Find the integers. Now, several of you right now are thinking in your head, what are two numbers that add up to equal 47? That's fine, but we are going to do this algebraically, and this is practice that you need because it is the setting up of the equation that is important, not being able to plug in numbers and find out what two numbers add up to 47. The word consecutive means one right after the other, like 1 and 2, or 5 and 6. Or 100 and 101. Two consecutive integers are two numbers that come one right after the other. And so I'm going to write my let statements first. So I'm going to say let x equal. Well, x will be my first number. And since I have to have two of them, I need another number. Well, if they are consecutive, one comes right after the other. If the first number is 1, then the second number is 2. And how do I get from 1 to 2? I add 1. So my second number is x plus 1. As I add 1 to it to get to the number right after it. So in order to find my two integers, I'm going to read my sentence again. It says the sum. Well, that means I have to add these up. So I have to do the first one, x, plus the second one, x plus 1. And I know that the sum equals 47. Now I have an equation. I can simplify with like terms. X plus x is 2x. Plus 1 equals 47, and now I can solve my equation. It will tell me what x equals, which will then help me find x plus 1. So I'm going to subtract 1 from both sides. So I have 2x equals 46. And then when I divide both sides by 2, you should get that x equals 23. Well, that tells me that the first number is 23. Now, there are two ways to do the second half of this problem. Number one, you know they are two consecutive integers. If one of them is 23, the next one needs to be 24. Otherwise, they are not consecutive. Or you can do it algebraically. You know the x is 23, so x plus 1 has to be 23 plus 1, which is 24. So the second number is 24. I'm sure that several of you did that in your head, but please focus on doing the algebra and writing the equations because it's not always going to be a consecutive integer problem. You're going to need to be able to set up equations. So the next one, I have the sum of two consecutive odd integers, and their sum is 36. We've got to find the two integers. Again, we're going to write let statements. Whenever you have consecutive integer problems, one of them is almost always going to be x. So we're going to say x is the first number. Unless they give you information about both of them, one is x. Now, since these are consecutive odd integers, like 1 and 3, or 5 and 7, or 15 and 17, okay, they are both odd integers, but there's a number in between them that's even. So instead of the second one being x plus 1, it's going to be x plus 2 because I have to add two numbers to get to the next odd number. It's true for even numbers as well. If I'm going from 2 to 4, I still have to add 2. So if you're skipping a number, it becomes x plus 2. So I'm going to find the two integers. This says sum, which means I get to add them up. So I have x plus 2 equals 36. Well, that makes 2x plus 2. And I'm going to subtract 2 from both sides, which gives me 2x equals 34. And when I divide by 2, I get that x equals 17. Well, that is an odd number. It's an odd integer, so we're good so far. So the first number is 17. The second number, x plus 2, is its next consecutive buddy, which happens to be 19. So the second number is 19. And you can check real quick, make sure they really work. 17 plus 19, yep, it's 36. Okay, But please focus on writing the let statements, identifying your variables, and then setting up an equation. That is the important part. Not, can you logically do this in your head really fast? So now we have a problem. It tells us the measures of the angles of a triangle are x degrees, x plus 5 degrees, and 2x plus 3 degrees. Solve for x and then find the measure of each angle. It says to draw a picture. If you do not already have a triangle, draw one. And then we're going to label our angles. Well, the biggest one is 2x plus 3. The smallest one is going to be x. And the next one will be x plus 5. Now, if you do not remember, I'm going to refresh your memory. If you take all three angles of a triangle and you add them together, they will always equal 180. So if I add all three angles together, it's going to give me 180. So I'm going to add them up. I have x plus 2x plus 3 plus x plus 5 equals 180. Now I'm going to combine like terms to simplify this. So x plus 2x is 3x. 3x plus another x is 4x. And then 3 plus 5 is 8. So I have 4x plus 8 equals 180. So we're going to solve. So I'm going to minus 8. So I get 4x equals 172. And then I'm going to divide both sides by 4, which gives me 43. So I now know that x equals 43. And it so happens that one of my angles happens to be called x. That means this one is 43 degrees. Now I have to find the other two. I'm going to do the x plus 5 one first. So x plus 5 is going to be 43 plus 5, which is 48. So this other angle is 48 degrees. Now you have two options here for the third angle. You can add up the two you know and subtract them from 180, or you can just plug in x into the expression for the third one. So that's what I'm going to do. 2x plus 3 now becomes 2 times 43 plus 3, which happens to be 86 plus 3, which is 89. Double check my math there. So that one happens to be 89 degrees. And so this one is 89. And you can check real quick and make sure you got it right. If you add those three angles up and they do not equal 180, you made a mistake somewhere. Okay, so that is solving equations, multi-step equations. Hopefully you got some good practice. We will practice this some more in class when you come tomorrow. I hope that the videos are going well for you. If you are having issues, please feel free to come talk to me. You can come watch them before school. You can come watch them at lunch. We can find a way to hook them up on a flash drive, but please, if for some reason you're having issues, come talk to me. Otherwise, I hope things are going great, and I will see you tomorrow.